game a serious upgrade. Join internationally renowned mindset and performance expert, Kathryn Orford.
Hello there, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the Champions Mindset podcast, coming to you live every Sunday at this time, 7 p.m. Eastern. We are growing exponentially. Honestly, last week we had 3.8 to 3.9K viewers, so we're going for at least 4,000 tonight. Whether you're an athlete, a coach, a parent of an athlete, or perhaps a business person, listen up because my guest tonight is going to share some incredible gold nuggets when it comes to mindset and achieving your dreams. And be sure to comment below and stay till the end because I'll share a link with you to download a free copy of my ebook, which is called Mental Performance Mastery for Basketball Success. But guess what? It's not just for basketball success, it applies to all sports, in fact, life. Let me tell you a little bit about my guest today. He was born in St. Croix in the Virgin Islands. He competed internationally, including at the Olympics and World Championships. He's a former sprinter. He's competing in the 100 and the 200 meter sprints. He also serves as the national coach for the US Virgin Islands. He's coached athletes who become NCAA champions and Olympians. He led Cornell to multiple Ivy League titles. He's been awarded Ivy League Coach of the Year multiple times. Adrian was hired at Cornell University in 2012 as the men's and women's sprint coach. Under his guidance, the Cornell sprints quickly improved and they generated a number of conference championships and NCAA qualifiers and gained widespread national recognition. So after serving as assistant coach for 3 years, Adrian was promoted to head coach of track and field and cross country at Cornell University, making him the youngest head coach in the country at the time and one of the few Black head coaches in the Ivy League. Without any further ado, please help me give a really warm Champions Mindset welcome to Coach Adrian Durant, and be sure to give him some love in the comments and tell all your friends to join us on this podcast. Welcome, Adrian.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
How are you doing up there in where are we? In New York, yes?
Yes, I am in upstate New York, and it's great. It's summertime, so it's nice and warm, just the way I like it. I struggle a little more in the winter, but I like this time of year. So
Coming
great.
from where you come from, I'm sure you do struggle a tad, but you've been there a while. You must have gotten used to it.
You would think so.
Yeah. So, Adrian, you've had this incredible story of being 10 years old and dreaming of representing the Virgin Islands at the Olympics, and not only dreaming about it, but actually making that dream come true. So, who was your inspiration back then? Was there someone you looked up to, or perhaps a moment that sparked that fire inside your belly?
It's funny. I can't remember the exact moment. When I was younger, I was just pretty much a ball of energy, and so my mother was trying to figure out a way to keep me preoccupied. And so she put me in multiple sports. I think I was so young at the time that you were only allowed to do certain things. So I was in martial arts at first, and then eventually I was in soccer and track and flag football and basketball. And track was the one that it kind of stuck with me, I guess. Um, I wasn't that great at basketball. I wasn't that great at football. I wasn't as coordinated as I needed to be. I was okay at soccer, but track just seemed like the thing. I had a lot of energy and I was pretty fast. And so I just had to run faster than everyone else and not stop. And so I ended up being pretty decent at it. And I think it may have been watching the Olympics. It may have been watching Michael Johnson run the 400. And I think I just saw it one day on TV and was like, I want to do that. That looks like an amazing thing. And I think at the time I really didn't know how big a goal it was, but I just remember it was like I want to go to the Olympics, and I had little newspaper articles where you could see I'm being interviewed and I'm talking about wanting to go to the Olympics. So it was
When you
kind of
were 10,
being
you got some
yeah
articles. Oh,
yeah. This is when I was in like elementary school. Yeah. You know, I started
Oh,
because I started in second grade, so by the time I was maybe in fifth or sixth grade, it started picking up some momentum.
so what were some of the mental tools or maybe the self belief that you held on to that helped
Hmm.
you actually stay focused from that young age to actually achieving that goal?
Well, I think the first piece was that early on, um, my mother supported that goal. So she made sure I was at track practice all the time. She made sure I didn't quit. And she would just sleep in the car until practice was over, but she would make sure I
Oh,
was there every time. And, she sacrificed her, I guess her life, but yeah, that was, I was at practice all the time. So I think that's a big piece of it. And then it was never like a mockery of that dream. It was always like, okay, well, if that's your dream, you have to stick to it. So that means you're gonna have to keep your grades up, because if your grades aren't up, we'll never allow you to go to track practice or track meets. So it's all a piece of, if this is your goal, then all right, but everything else has to be in place for you to be able to achieve that. And so my mom took it seriously. And because of that, when I got to a certain age, I was sent off to live in New Jersey. So there was a pretty
mm,
much, there will only be so many opportunities in the Virgin Islands, not many track meets. And the idea was that if I can get to New Jersey with my family members, then I would be able to run more track meets and have more access to opportunities. So um, that's how serious, that's how seriously everyone took the goal that, pretty much was shipped off to live with relatives.
how did it feel to actually achieve that goal?
Well, I think because I was 18 at the time, it didn't really hit me as it was like it hit me. It was like, okay, my whole life I've been wanting to accomplish this goal, but I don't think it hit me as hard as it should have, because I figure, I'm 18. I made it here. I'm gonna be able to do this again. Like this is what the standard is now. I'll be here and it won't be that great this time, but at least I have the experience. The next time I'm gonna come back, guaranteed. And so I think I took it for granted a little bit, just how difficult of a goal that was. And I didn't think that it could be the last time I would be there.
Mm. Gotcha, gotcha. So
Yeah.
let's talk about the extraordinary athletes that you coach at Cornell. So you've coached countless high achievers, and just really, what are some of the biggest internal or mental challenges you find your athletes face today, especially those driven by that perfectionism streak that we've actually talked about? What do you think are their biggest challenges?
Well, I coach athletes at different levels. So I've coached athletes at the highest level, which that would be Olympics, World Championship, European Championship type level. And then we have the kids who compete at the NCAA, you know, Division 1 championship level. And then there are some kids who compete at the conference level. So everyone's at a different level, and they would all have different degrees of issues that you would have to address. Um, I think it starts from, similarly to my story, it starts with the goal setting. So typically, you won't find someone who's at the highest level who hasn't set a goal to be at the highest level.
Sure.
And I find it's more common these days for folks to not sit down and really hash out what their goal is. Um,
Mm,
they're kind of going with the fact that they're talented, they're good at it, and they've just stuck with it, but don't really have a destination. And you could be decent that way, but you'll never be great. So I find that the ones who are great have a goal. They're not afraid to say that goal out loud. They're
mm,
not embarrassed by their goal. And I feel that that's piece of it. You have to be able to say that without being ashamed. Like that's what you believe. Um, and so at the highest level, it's not, they have the goal locked in. you know
yeah.
I
They're
find
breathing it, they're living it, they're visualizing it every day. That's their total
exactly.
focus. Yeah.
Whereas a first year in college, I would have to try to get them to you know be able to really figure out what that goal is. Because some of them, they may be doing it because they were good in high school or their parents encouraged them, and now you're in college, you're at another level of the sport, it's more difficult. So is this what you really want to do? And if so, why do you want to do it? Really figuring
Yeah.
that piece out before even trying to get past that, before you get the competition.
Yeah, the why is huge, isn't it? Because the why is what's going to get them out of bed when they don't feel like getting out of bed to go to
The why
training.
is going to get you up the hill. It's going to get you, lifting the weights and enduring all the hard stuff. And if the why is not strong enough, then you're not going to be able to endure.
And how do you help your athletes navigate the pressure of being perfect or recovering from a less than ideal race, or dealing with that fear of like not living up to expectations or letting you down? How do you coach the athletes through that sort of situation?
So I don't expect them to be perfect at all. They expect themselves to be perfect.
Yes.
I coach at Cornell. Cornell is an Ivy League school, so it's extremely rigorous. It's one of the best schools academically on the planet. And so if a kid's on my team, they're going to be a certain type of individual, right? They're going
Mhm.
to handle things, process things a certain way, and they're used to getting things right, and they're used to being good at everything. And but it's one thing being good in high school and being a state champion, and it's another thing to be good at Cornell and be an Ivy League champion or be at the Division 1 level. The level of
Big
difficulty
jump.
just cranks up a little bit. So um, it's part of it is the realization that, yeah, you're gonna have to put yourself out there if you're gonna want to reach this level. So I would say the thing about perfection is, and I feel like I told you this story, but or the difference that I see coaching at Cornell compared to schools that I've been at before. Whereas at another school, I could tell an individual, hey, go touch this wall, and it's like, okay, bam, touch the wall. Whereas at Cornell, it's like, hey, go touch this wall. Where in the wall would you like me to touch? Go touch this wall. What part of my body should make contact with the wall? Go touch this wall. How much pressure to apply to the wall? And all of that, the attempt to do it perfectly has led to paralysis. You have not done anything. You haven't made the attempt. And so
Yes.
I find it's more so not trying to be perfect, but taking all the steps you're supposed to take and then putting yourself out there and taking the risk. And you may fail, you may not win, but you have to put the full effort out there, because wherever you fall short is better than where you would have been if you didn't attempt it, right? So it's like
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
have to attempt it and you have to put all into it if you want to grow. And no one gets to the top without losing. Everyone loses, everyone fails. So it's just, how do you bounce back from that? Do you? And I do find that kids who are always trying to be perfect can be harder on themselves, and myself as a coach, how hard I am on them. So it's more, they may fail, and it's like, oh, I'm not smart, I'm not fast, I'm not this, and it's like, oh, that's
Mm.
not the case at all. It's just, this is going to be an obstacle that you're going to have to overcome in your journey, in your story, that you're going to tell later about how you became great. This is the thing. So you can let it defeat you, or you can figure out a way, past this.
Yeah, they probably have a really rampant inner critic, I would say,
Woo,
because they are perfectionists.
for sure, for sure. So I don't have to be so critical. If
Yeah,
anything, it's
they do
me.
that for themselves.
If anything, I spend more time giving them perspective on, no, why. Don't just look at this like I suck, but what was the issue with this performance and what led to that issue, because
Mm.
then you have a kid with a 4.0 GPA, and maybe they didn't sleep last night, and they don't correlate that not sleeping to the lack of performance.
Mm. Yeah, gotcha. So I know that you don't have this challenge at Cornell, but a lot of sports coaches that I really do speak to, and we've talked about this, they feel like this generation of athletes actually lack grit and determination. And they talk about how everyone gets a trophy kind of mindset means that young athletes aren't really taught how to struggle and fail and bounce back, or as I prefer to say, bounce forward. Because if we bounce back, we're going back to where we were, whereas we're not bringing the lesson with us. So, what's your perspective on that? And do you see that at all in track and field? Probably not with your athletes, but what's your
No,
thoughts on that?
I would say the same complaints that everyone hears, we experience in track and field. uh, I disagree when I see coaches on, basketball or football coaches being interviewed, and they're just talking down on this generation of kids. Like, these kids are this, these kids are that. And I'm
Mhm.
like, it's not like there's not an issue with the kids. The kids will work hard. The
Yes.
kids, my kids work very hard. If anything, I have to explain to them the value of recovery sometimes because they think more work equals success, no matter what the
Mm.
scenario is. Do the work. That's what they've learned. That's why they're great students. But that doesn't necessarily apply to sports because sometimes you need to rest. So I'm coaching Gen Z kids. I don't see that they don't have the ability to work. Um,
You
I see
probably
some.
inspire them though too. Do you see that to me that's a key point in a coach. I don't think that we can coach this era the way that, for example, these basketball coaches were coached themselves maybe 30 years ago because it is a different generation.
Well, here's the thing. I think that first you have to build a relationship with the kids. They have to trust you.
Mhm.
If I have a kid come day one and I'm coaching them and I'm like some of these old school coaching movies where I'm on them, then I'm gonna lose the kid. I might lose my job because their reaction to that is gonna be, whoa, this guy is crazy, he hates me. The person is that's what they're gonna interpret that as, not necessary. And I do get a little bit of that because if you're going to be successful, you have to hold kids accountable. They don't necessarily like that in all cases, and they don't understand sometimes the rules that you have, but the rules that you have, they're there for a reason. And so, I don't expect them to like me all the time. Um, so that's the piece of it. But I have to understand how to communicate with them and
Yeah.
meet them where they are. The generation of kids who came up in a pandemic, they were home during school. They got a lot of attention, and so they're bringing that with them. That's the environment they're used to, and I have to be the the introduction to the real world where I will give them attention, but also in that they have to understand that when you leave college, the world isn't going to give you everything that you need. So tailor your expectations a little bit. And
Mhm.
so I approach it like that, where I am willing to be flexible and meet them where they are, while I'm also letting them know where I am and I'm not moving from there necessarily.
Yeah.
Like this is so I understand you need this, and this, but this is what it takes to win. This has not changed. And the people who win, they execute the same formula now as the folks who were winning 10 and 20 and 30 years ago. And
Yeah.
there's no way on earth you could tell me that a Sidney McLaughlin Maroney or does not have grit or isn't tough or doesn't work hard or isn't committed and focused. That's just as any athlete ever you know
Yes. Yes.
so
Yeah.
so I think, yes, the generations are different, but what it takes to be a successful athlete has not changed. And as coaches, we have to be flexible in how we communicate and deal with the kids and see where they are and try to get them to where they need to be, rather than just being overly critical and complaining that they're not the generation of kids that you can just run into the dirt and yell at all day.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could run us into the dirt and you could not talk to us and we would do what we needed to do. But it was just, we also were allowed to, at 10 years old, to be outside until 6 p.m. and be gone for the whole day with no cell phones, and parents don't know where you are. It's a different we grew up in a different environment.
Yeah. Yeah. So, with so many perfectionists under your wing, what mental skills or daily rituals do you encourage your athletes to build?
I talk a lot about positive self-talk. I find that, like we said before, they're overly critical, very harsh critics of themselves, and I'm usually finding myself in a position of saying, "No, that was good," like because I see the positives of, like, if they do a repetition, they run, and they're so focused on the goal. So they'll run something and they'll say, "What was the time?" And I'll tell them the time. They won't like the time. But to
Mhm.
me, as the coach, it was a great rep because I saw them do the things that I needed them to do in
Mm.
that rep to make it a valuable rep. And so I'm like, that was a good rep. But mentally, they're like, that's a bad rep. And they're saying it and they're shaking their head no. And after, they're like, no, you have to have a better understanding of what we're doing so that you know
Yeah.
it's not a wasted rep. Because if you think it's bad when it's good, and then you're not going to get, like, you're mentally not be able to perform because you think you're not where you need to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we were talking about as well earlier in the week that they want to look at film
Yeah.
and they don't even know what to look for anyway. So
No.
they've got to really put their trust in you, the coach, because you know what
Yeah.
you're seeing.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of film.
Yeah.
I understand the purpose of it, but as a coach, and I think there's a benefit that my team is very big. We have 75, 80 men. Same with women. And just my event group, sprints and hurdles, I have maybe 35 individuals that I'm coaching directly.
Mm.
Um, and so it's impossible for me to video.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
which is good. So it's
Yeah.
something that I have to be able to coach without. Um, I want the kids to feel what they're doing and not have to go review footage and try to look at what I'm asking them to do. When they do a good rep, I want to be able to say, that was good. What did you feel? And then to be able to close their eyes and go back and feel different aspects of the repetition.
Mm. Mm.
Not
And
just look, because if they review the video, they're not going to, if I'm like, okay, you didn't transition well. You need to stay aggressive through your transition to top speed. And they want to look at the video. I'm like, no, you just ran the rep so you can feel what happened. So run it back and talk to, and I make them tell me, because instantly they'll say they don't know. Well, that's an issue. So
yeah.
stop for a second, take your time, be patient. Now let's talk about it. So I will take the time to do that, but not video.
And that's teaching them to have the sensory acuity, like the body awareness of
Yes.
exactly what happened.
Because if any coach, and lots of coaches know this, a lot of times a kid will do something right and it feels bad, so they don't necessarily know what the great perfect rep. They know what they're used to, so they're trying to achieve the feeling of this feels good because what it's used to, and well, that's not what we're
Mm.
trying to accomplish. So what we're trying to accomplish may feel different, and I want you to be able to identify the differences.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, what might have worked for them to win a state championship is not going to get them to that next level.
Definitely not, it just won't.
Yeah, yeah. Adrian, is there a standout story you can share, maybe of an athlete who transformed their mindset or overcame that perfectionism or entitlement traps and really became unstoppable? Because I think you've coached some pretty amazing people that have created some amazing results. Did they always have that amazing mindset, or was it something that you helped them develop?
Now, I would say that yes, as coaches, we absolutely help develop the mindset, but the individual has to have the tools. Um, they have to have all these different characteristics. So I coached a young man. He ended up being a European champion in the 200 meters,
Mm,
and Spanish national record holder in the 100, 200, 400, everything. Pretty much the fastest person in the history of Spain, and
amazing.
he was an engineer, so he was very organized, and he was disciplined, and so he was punctual, um, he was analytical,
Mm,
um, he had these qualities that you know the way I coach, I teach. And so we have high level conversations about what we're doing and why, so that he gained a greater understanding of those things. So when I make, and it's not so that he could become a better coach, because without me, his performance inevitably did decline, even doing the workouts that he knew from me. So but it's more so for when, as a coach, I make decisions. It's not always a pushback or you can trust the decisions that I'm making, so you don't
mm,
have to worry about that piece of this. This is the workout, and you understand that there's a rationale behind it, and you can go and do it. um, and so having that understanding of the different concepts of training theory, um, those are great. So I would say that the individuals who have made it to the highest levels had a thing. They had a raw thing that you could refine. Whether and it didn't have to be the things that he has. It could be a whole different quality. But if you took champions, all have these qualities that I think as coaches we see it. For example, with him, the minute he started running faster, I started calling him the Spaniard, like off of Gladiator, the movie.
mhm.
Spaniard, and I kept boosting him up, building him up. And so I
Yes.
remember at the Olympics, I met some of the reporters from Marco, one of the Spanish papers, and they met me, and then it was like, okay, now we understand why he walks with his chest up and his head up, and with confidence because that's how I walk. And they were like, okay, we see the correlation here. Like, so
Yes.
so he has. So I would say yes, these individuals have to have these characteristics, but as coaches, we have to refine them. We have to identify them and refine them.
Yeah. And not only that, you just spoke into it. You have to model for them how to hold their body, how to feel confident, how to speak to themselves, their kind of, their self-talk and things like that. So,
So
and
that's
that's
I
the part
don't.
that I think a lot of coaches don't get. Do you know what I mean? It's like I love that saying. Ed Milet, who's this, he's got the number one podcast in the world for performance, high performance, and he says so much of what we learn as children, and I think it also applies to athletes that have been coached at the level that they've been coached like yours, is so much is caught, not taught.
Absolutely, and I didn't want to jump in, but that reminded me of it's similar to as a coach your demeanor. If I am going into a competition and I am stressed and I'm snapping on everybody for everything and I don't look confident, the kids are gonna see that,
Trickle
feel that.
down,
Yeah,
trickle
they're
down.
gonna feel that. They're gonna understand that. They're gonna feel it. Coach is not confident. Coach doesn't think we could do it. Then that's gonna impact those of them who, if I feel that way, because there are kids who, if they don't sense that you believe in them, they lose a little bit of spark, you know. So
They're your kinesthetics. The kinesthetic learners have to feel good to do good, and they have to feel like you like them.
yeah,
Otherwise, they're going to shut down. I know. I'm a kinesthetic.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, if you could wave, if there are some young athletes listening to this right now in whatever sport that they play, if you could wave a magic wand and give all of them one essential mental trait
Ooh,
to
that's tough.
practice to
Uh,
kind of get better, what would it be? Aside from having the physical skills.
one mental trait to
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah, to develop,
Um,
to be as good as they can be.
that's a tough one because there's so many things. Um, mental trait because I know when it comes to Cornell, a big piece of being successful is time management. And so the trait that I would describe it as is prioritization, like being able to look at everything and see where things rank in your life. Um, being an athlete isn't just what you do at practice. That's the bare minimum. Every
Mm,
athlete comes to practice and works hard and they think, okay, I'm going to be good. No, you're going to be the standard now. So now, how are you sleeping? How are you eating? How are you living the life of an athlete outside of the boundaries of practice? 'Cause that's when you really show whether you're not you're an athlete or not. And so I would say if you want to be great, you have to be able to prioritize everything in your life. Where do things fit in your quest to be a great athlete? Because if they don't fit, then they need to be at the bottom of that list or off of the list.
yeah, and I'm going to be coaching quite a lot of elite athletes in high school that are aspiring to landing a college scholarship, and that's going to be a huge component of what they're going to need to do. They're going to need to prioritize where they're spending their time, who they're spending their time with. Maybe they don't get to go to that party. Maybe they don't. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I can tell you from my experience right now, the millennial parents have prepared their kids, and so these kids are good athletes and very good students. And so I think if you find yourself being an athlete who does not have good grades in this day and age, you're not going to have any opportunities.
mm,
At least that's my opinion. Because these kids, I just think academically, these kids are very prepared now. It's why the Ivy League competitively has gotten better because the better athletes are better students now in high school. So the level of recruits that we have who can get into the Ivy League are better.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's one of your favorite quotes? I think my producer Jason probably can pop it up on the screen, but what's one of your favorite quotes about? Could you pop that up for us, please, Jason?
I think it was about, yeah, being ready to sacrifice. It feels like it sounds like a generic quote, but it's just 100% true. And I think, at least when I was coming up, it was a message that was known and understood. And now, as you alluded to, in an era where more people do receive awards and things like that, that maybe is not understood that to be the best, you actually do give other things up.
Mm,
Um, you can't. So NCAA is the number one kind of developmental system in the world for track and field for sure. So that means you want to be in the NCAA. You want to be at the high. So Division One is the highest level. So that's where you want to be essentially. Um, so you're going to give up on a lot of the things that the traditional college life. Because if you are doing the things, the traditional college things and partying and fraternities and things like that, then you're pretty much going to forego your athletic career. So you're choosing, but it's
yeah,
very hard to be an elite college athlete when you're not sleeping and you're drinking and you're doing all these other things that you shouldn't be doing. You're not, um, you don't have proper nutrition and things like that. It's just not going to happen. So
yeah.
you're gonna give something up, but what you're giving up is so unimportant, and that's what I talk to my kids about. Like, you're never gonna; those kids aren't gonna remember those things, but you being a part of this team, traveling the country, and all this competition, the memories you're building, like this is something that when you're 80 years old, you're gonna be proud of.
Hmm.
So save the other stuff when you're an adult and you can't run track anymore.
Yeah. And honestly, that sense of commitment to the team, even though they might be playing an individual sport, they are representing Cornell, so they're a member of your team.
For
And
sure.
that is crucial life skills. Like, they may go on to, I don't know, lead a team in the corporate arena, or, be an amazing engineer. And the bottom line is that commitment they've shown you and you've taught them
Hmm.
is going to really create a great foundation for the rest of their lives.
Yes, for sure. But and to go back to that quote, it doesn't only apply to them, it applies to others. I mean, I don't work a 40-hour week.
Yeah.
A 40-hour week. Like, I'm 40 is up by the time I'm at Friday. Now let's go travel to a track meet and come back Sunday evening, right? And then we're back at it Monday morning. And that's track season.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's full.
so
Yeah.
that's 150, so that's a sacrifice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you don't want to recruit, and if you don't want to make the phone calls, and if you don't want to do the official visits, then the team is not going to be that great. So I have
Yeah.
to sacrifice. We all have to sacrifice if we want to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think that a lot of kids that do aspire to getting a college scholarship really get the depth of that commitment. Um,
Oh, it's a commitment, but I think many of them are understanding it now with the recent changes because there are roster limitations, and folks there've been a lot of cuts across the country. Folks are getting cut from teams. Event groups are getting cut from programs. So there are reduced opportunities now that money has become such a. It was always a driving force, but now it's become such a key factor now in this whole college athletics thing. Uh,
yeah. Yeah.
it's driving all of the decision making.
Yeah. Look, we could talk for hours, but where can listeners? I think Jason can pop up your website address. Where can listeners find out more
Yes.
about you and what you do? Because when you have a bit of spare time, sometimes you speak as well.
Yes, I have my hobbies. Coming from the Virgin Islands, saying I wanted to be an Olympian, then becoming an Olympian, then becoming an Ivy League head coach, and like you said, head coach of the year, becoming an Olympic team coach. And it's like, okay, so if I can just I can make it from the Virgin Islands and accomplish these things, and other people can do it as well. And I have a belief that a lot of individuals don't accomplish things because they don't try, and they don't try because they don't really know it's possible. They see their surroundings and they just don't know it's a possible thing to do. So I like to speak when I have the opportunity to just share that message, say like, look, this is where I came from. If I could pull it
Mm.
off, I could be Ivy League head coach and head coach of the year and all these things. You can do all kind of stuff if you really are just relentless and just don't give up and you just keep trying. And I could talk about all kind of failures that I've had in my life where it looked like I was going to hit a dead end, And it's like, no, you have to like keep pushing. You really do. And it sounds cliche, but it's true. That's why people like me and other coaches always say it. It's real. And so,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
So
not it's not a straight path to success. It's a
no.
it's a winding road.
So I try to do speaking and things like that, different events to just share that message. So,
Great.
on my website, folks can book me when they want me to speak at different functions. Um, it was the same reason I created a podcast, which I have not been involved with recently, but it's still online, and it's I similar to this. I talk to athletic individuals, medalists, and champions, and I have them tell their stories because all the stories are similar. So it's like, okay, so if I want to be a champion, this is what I literally have to do this, suffer for a while, and then it's like, all right, then you get past the suffering. If you can make it past the suffering, you're good.
Yeah, and also you're gonna have naysayers, you're gonna have people saying, "Oh, no, you'll never make it, you're not good enough," and all
Yeah,
that
you
stuff.
never
That
listen to
happened to
them.
me. I would never become a dancer if I listened to all that, so
You never listen to them. And
no.
that's why I was glad as a kid people humored me with my crazy dreams because I got to the point where it didn't matter if anyone didn't think I could do it. Who cares what they think?
Yes, yes. One of my favorite quotes is, if someone says to me, I can't do something, I just say it internally, but I also have a poster that I put up sometimes on my social media, and it's just watch me.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like, I,
seriously.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you gotta give it a shot.
Yeah, Adrian, thank you so much for being my guest today, and
No,
thank
thanks
you
for having me.
everybody for tuning in. I'd love to get you back another time because I'd love to talk to you about what you think about this whole NIL thing as well. But we're running
Oh
out of
man.
time, and that's a whole other rabbit hole. But as promised, there's a link to download a free copy of my ebook. And again, share this because the more people that hear these messages, you know, the more amazing this world's going to become. So thank
Sure.
you so much. I really appreciate your time, and let's get you back another time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
Thanks, Adrian.
Thank
Ciao
you.
for now, everyone.
Thanks for watching The Champion's Mindset with Kathryn Orford. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next week.